Awesome. All right. Would you all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. There. With that, I'll call the Damariscotta Select Board to order for a regular meeting, January 3rd. So we have a few folks in the audience tonight. Thanks for coming in. We do have one addition, if it pleases the board. We had a tax lien, or what do you want to call it, Andy? This is it's not a lien, but it's a.
Oh, it was a lien that became foreclosed.
Lien that became a foreclosure, but yeah, we can consider under official action items there. So if it's all right with the board, it looks pretty straightforward. I guess take up too much time. You'll go with that. If not, good enough. All right. Let's dive right into it. So hopefully I won't lose my voice here, folks, but do the best I can. You have to call Josh in if I.
You don't want that to happen.
Let's move on. So we do have minutes of December 20th or 21st, right? Yes, the 21st. Do we have any additions, changes, any edits on the minutes, folks? You look good. Tom, you
I
look.
passed.
That's all right.
Made it. Yeah.
Very good.
No
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Josh has made a motion to
Second.
approve the minutes. Tom?
I think this is his first time in about a
I think
year.
so. Awesome. I heard
This
Tom
day in
second.
history.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right.
I did.
Tom second. Yep. Motion carries. So cool. And you were here. Yeah. All right. So financials, we have a couple of the payroll warrant number 30. I'll move payroll 30.
I'll second.
Josh seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, it carries. We have two accounts payable warrants. I guess we can entertain a motion for moving both of them at the same time. I don't think there's any
30 and
Oh,
31 and 32.
31 and 32.
Yeah, I'll move 31 and 32, and I do have a question on 32.
Okay, yep. So Josh has made a motion. Do I have a second? All right, Tom's good. Sorry, Dan's going to second. And discussion. Yep, go ahead, Josh.
On AP warrant 32, it's for J&H, and the check is for 6,600. Has the work been completed?
They plan on having it completed tomorrow and asked if we'd be able to make a payment before 2 weeks from now. So I said we could consider it, but won't release it obviously until it's completed per the trustee's satisfaction.
Yeah, I just know we were due 50% was due when they started, and
Now they waived the 50% being required upfront
Okay.
for us on this, and kind of happens an expedited project for them. So they're looking for full payment. They didn't require the 50%,
Okay.
and we just won't release it until we know it's done. But should it be completed to the satisfaction, like say tomorrow,
then you can release it.
it wouldn't have to wait 2 more weeks, and then, so if that's okay with the board.
Yep,
Makes
fine with
sense.
me.
Yep. Sounds good. All right,
That's all I
any
have.
more discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, motion carries. Warrants carried. Okay. Citizens' comments, general correspondence, anything sneak in past the hour, Andy?
No.
There, I don't see anybody coming in online. Is there anyone in the audience that has anything they want to jump up and, not yet. All right, we'll move on. Let's dig right into your town manager report, Andy.
Great.
Give us all the good news.
I'll just try and just run through. If I think, did anyone have any questions on what I had in the report that jumped out at you? Before I jump in and just guess which ones are more important.
Yeah, any?
I did.
Yeah.
I have a question. And actually it's under road improvement. As I was reading through it, it just sort of struck me, and I still think I can get away with this as the new person on
Yeah.
on the board, is that
Shoot.
you're talking about how you've done an inventory, and that it did look like there were a lot of roads that needed a fair amount of maintenance, and some of them more than just a little maintenance.
Right.
So I was thinking about Damariscotta as a town,
Mhm.
and we're not that big a town geographically
Right.
as towns go. And a lot of our major roads are state roads,
Mhm.
the ones that are most heavily traveled when you think about it.
Mhm.
So I was thinking about the town and the maintenance and the roads, and And it occurred to me, when you started talking about a bond, that's a pretty big step.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, how do we ever get that far behind as a community with the roads? And maybe I'm missing something, and I know that maybe our roads are tough to maintain, maybe,
Right.
or maybe I just need a little more information, and maybe the help of others here who might have the
Come to
same
the
background.
come to the Public Works Committee meeting, the next one we have.
I mean,
It's a
as
fair
far as like
question, yeah.
Long process.
the history further back, I'm not.
And I guess my last point would be is that, my guess is typically towns would have a sort of a history of building up reserves for these sort of things that should be able to be anticipated.
Right.
And it looks like maybe we haven't done that, or we're not, or for whatever reason, we're not there.
We didn't anticipate the cost of materials rising so quickly.
I think,
That was one of the things that kind of threw a monkey wrench into things.
and I could be wrong, Josh, but I think historically, mindset too has been I think we've focused on the next road to do and what that's gonna cost and being a big number and I think, yeah, there's a much broader aspect. So, is that kind of, I know to speak for the Public Works Committee, but a lot of times it's been like, if this road needs to get done, it's gonna
Yeah,
cost
we-
X amount. And
We've had a
yeah,
plan for probably 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
when
getting
you try
that
to
money.
implement that plan, you need some money. And when you start implementing it and then price per ton for asphalt rises significantly, if not double from when you started. That throws a big curveball at you. So, and then we decided that we do more of rather than just do overlays all the time, we try to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we've come up to, and that's why Andrew's usually involved in a lot of our thought process as the Public Works.
Yeah, because I know that we did two major roads in the last couple of years, the
Mhm.
Egypt
Yeah.
Road and the Lesnar
And
Road.
that
And
was
those have been
probably-
on
that
the
was-
books for what, 10, 15 years to,
Yeah.
yeah.
We just needed to get our timing right with paying off our debt from previous other things. So
Right.
that's why we went that
I
route.
mean, your overlays on a well-built road bed, with
Correct.
good drainage solutions running next to them. I mean, you're probably somewhere between 10 and 15 years on an overlay.
Yeah.
Depending on the use and what's underneath it and what's going on. But if you aren't budgeting for those overlays, which I guess maybe you could call more of a, if you'd call that a little more than routine, but more of a routine maintenance if you thought of it that way, just doing the overlays. It's when you let it get beyond that and you start getting into culvert replacements, roadbed failures. Now you're talking rehab and just reconstruction. And so trying to avoid those huge costs. How do we fund a budget that if you want to try and aim for that? I mean, this year we put 125,000 in the reserve. I mean,
That doesn't-
$125,000 isn't going to get a whole lot of overlay completed. I mean, it'll get a lot, but not full roads in some cases. I mean, some of our longer ones. And so I think we just need to continue to work. What do we want to work towards building? At this point, we're kind of behind. And I think if you're going to tackle some roads, I mean, talking to Daryl the other day about, Keen Woods, and that's been on the radar for a while. Not a top priority per se, but it's one that I think is slowly starting to, because of the drainage deficiencies out there, that one that we got to keep an eye on. Lesnar Road's another one. I mean, those two roads together are about 2 miles. Sections of it could be overlaid. Some sections need to be rebuilt potentially. Some could just be milled and overlaid. So it's a combination of, and that's where the committee tries to put that work plan together, but you then still need the money to be able to go forward with it. So I think just need to figure out, for me anyways, how the committee and the board wants to approach those when it comes time for budget season, so we know what we're advocating for. And then you look at all the other projects outside of just repairing and replacing what we have, and new sidewalks or big culvert replacements like on Church Street that might not have been on the radar at some point. So it quickly just becomes a lot. And it can very easily fall behind with the costs of
It's
prices
expensive.
in the last few years going up, 30-40% in the last 5 years.
We did some of the smaller roads, just like Oak Road, Branch Road, a bunch of those, Hammond Street, just to try to get them done because they were bad, and then the cost of materials was so high that we figured, well, we need to do these anyway, but it's gonna fit within our budget. And then we don't have to do anything for those for probably 25 years. So,
We may very well get to a point like, Keen's Woods is a good example, where you may get to the point where it's not in the capital funds, but that's where you've mentioned, nobody wants to bond, but your hand might be forced at some point where it's like, okay, the road needs to be done. It's going to take us another 10 years to budget for it, but it can't wait another 10 years. And ideal world, you'd have this all budgeted out every 10, 15 years and the money getting put in, but it's going to take a while to build to that. And
Or we
up
can,
with,
or we can just do overlays on roads for the time being and just set a X amount and, money and say, put it out to bid, cost per ton, and how far you get within that is how far you get.
Yeah.
And you do the next
Overlays,
year, you do it again, but
but some,
15 years down the line, you're back at it again.
If you get that
right,
far.
If you get that far.
yeah, it's not right. It's not yet.
yeah, because overlays in
It's on.
some ways are short-sighted though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It can
that's
be,
where we are now.
Yeah.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
it just, I think the word
Yeah.
bond just sort of jumped
Mm.
out and then
Yeah.
it made me start thinking with that all.
And
In hindsight, we would have bonded more when we sent.
At 2 point something%, yeah.
Should have.
Who knew? Good Lord. What
And what
a,
are we doing
go
about
back
that,
in time.
the right-hand side of Hodgson Street where it's all already, there's big gullies going down underneath where we already did it.
Right, there's a few locations on the project that just was completed that still are on a punch list to finish, so that's on our radar, working with the engineer and the contractor to get that. That section in particular was modified from the design, and so we're working through, there was some ledge there that we didn't have removed, just not knowing how long it would take to try and remove it. There was a discussion about the mailbox placement and trying to relocate that to avoid the concern of putting a firmer shoulder or surface there so the mail could still be delivered we're trying to work through that, and that's on our list. It'll be fixed.
Okay.
And there's some other sections through that still need to be completed. Some of the mulching and whatnot still needs to be done per the plans.
Yeah. It didn't look pretty the other day.
Not forgotten.
It's
Okay.
on,
Need attention.
on the list, yeah. Anything else jumping out to anybody?
Yeah, I put a fair amount in there.
No, it's,
I did back off on the website, stuff. We talked about
Yeah.
that briefly last time. I just wasn't feeling great with the cheaper solution. Just as a heads up, any significant upgrades, our website is starting to look a little old.
Mhm.
From our perspective, we'd love it if it was a little easier to update and manage. Some of that comes with, the upgrade we're going to be getting because they're phasing out the platform we're on now. Isn't much of an upgrade. It's still going to look the same. It's still going to, on the back end, be the similar input for management, and maintenance. What I had brought previously was a rough estimate of what it would cost to get to that next level that the company we currently use offers. They have a whole bunch of other companies they've bought over the years and more modules and things we could add in the future if we wanted to. The other company that had called out of the blue, similar price minus the incentive to do it before the end of last year. But they don't have anywhere near the amount of add-ons if you wanted to in the future. Like you could have a better meeting and agenda platform. There's better forms and management on, if you want to have the report an issue. We can do them more simply through the website currently, and they just send us an email basically. But there's ways to enhance that experience for folks looking to use the website and communicate with us. So I think it's worth more conversation and discussion. Some of the websites I saw from the other company that we don't use currently just looked very simple, which might be fine. But they just didn't look like they offered as much behind, perhaps what I think folks are looking for, and especially from our end. So not having a chance, I just didn't feel like it was worth trying to slam it
need to
through at
jump
the end
in
of the year.
it's running, so. if
We've
you
got an
put more
idea
time
now
in-
of some benchmarking and some numbers
Yep.
if we want to do it appropriate, next year's budgeting process and consider that.
Sounds good.
Couple meetings coming up from the planning perspective. Michael and I are going to be meeting with folks from the hospital to talk about the nursing home project. Also the folks that in along the way are looking at kind of bringing back the idea of their development up
Starting to
there.
move it there. Yeah.
So they want to bring some folks up to take a look at the site up there. So we're going to meet with them ahead of that meeting.
That's been stalled a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Under Public Works, we talked about with the EV chargers. Did you get a chance to look at the grant language to make sure we're
I've reached out to,
compliant?
I've reached out to them and asked for a copy. I couldn't find a copy in-house.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a copy of the terms and I just haven't heard back with the holidays.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
they just didn't get back.
I just want to make sure we're.
I sent an email
there's some
last week.
caveats in there. We don't want to, yeah,
Because we're running out of time right with
owe
that.
them anything, yeah.
What do
We're
you-
running close to the time of the of the whole project being completed within the time for the grant.
Separate from the EV charger issue, but yes, with regards to the parking lot
The parking
project,
lot.
yeah, the grant is good for 60 months and they'd like the completion to be done. And that's, I think it's 2-year kind of increments and you can get 2 extensions. And so we'd be looking for an extension. I think the spring, they extended it to September. So I guess it's in September, we'd be getting an extension till, I don't know if it's the following September or April. April of 25 was the end of the 60 months from the original award. So I did hear back from, so our contact that we'd been working with most recently since I've been here, just, I don't know, however it came to be, he just said, you'll be talking to so-and-so now. They'd been included on the emails. They were presenting our changes to the committee. So they were aware of knew what our project was, sent the package of phase 2 materials off to him. Hadn't heard back after a week, checked in, hadn't heard. So had Max help get around that with another contact with the EDA. So Rich,
Okay.
Guy named Rich, who was on the original documents, is in the fold on this now. And so I did hear from him yesterday, and he thought he'd have it reviewed potentially today. I didn't see anything before we came into the meeting today, but it sounds like this week the engineers are planning to put it out to bid as if it's been approved. So that doesn't continue to delay. So it'll be in the
Okay.
paper next week, locally. And I think they're going to try and put it in the Portland paper as well, and however else they advertise these projects typically. So that'll preserve some of that timeline still that we were aiming for.
So I just heard that, right? It's going out to bid? You heard that?
I don't believe it. We heard that. That
It's
was
been a while. This
gonna
is
be
a
in March.
highly
It
needed
was gonna be
project.
March, 2 years ago.
So with that, we'll be
That's
working
awesome.
on some stakeholder community meetings, essentially,
Yeah.
starting to get those kind of on the books for folks.
Mhm.
We were able to, with the change in the footprint of that underground storage system, felt pretty good with some contractor input that it would, be easier to kind of this section of the parking lot and then this section. And so we could still
Change that.
maintain some parking in there. And the expectation is that there wouldn't be substantial construction during July or August or during the October holiday weekend there with Pumpkin Fest. And kind of let's see what we get back.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Good.
That's a good update. I just got a question today from somebody asking for more detail about what's going to happen. So that's great.
Can I take us down a different road?
Well, yeah, that's far we go.
Which one? We got a few.
A different road, housing.
Yeah.
Because there's at least 3 or 4 different comments in here about housing. One is the LD 2003 meeting coming up.
Mhm.
Is that something that the state is going around and just giving updates to communities,
They
community
are.
leaders?
Yep. I don't know if there's still a staff of 2, trying to get out to the whole state and be the resource for folks. So they happen to be hosting one in Damariscotta, which is
Right.
great. And there's, I think, 5 or 6 others throughout the state that they're hosting in January, February timeframe.
Mhm.
So I know it's on our radar internally to just be there for that, just to
Yeah,
listen.
I'd like to
Michael's
go,
been
'cause it's,
on his radar to make sure we can do what we need to do to get that in. We may or may not need to maybe pull in another resource, but we'll be talking about that once we get.
and the goal would be to be compliant by the June deadline.
July 1st.
July 1st. So, and then these 2 legislative updates are really curious. And because they would impact Damariscotta, well, all communities, but the first one about subdivisions and subdivision approvals, so they would be just done at the municipal level. So that would that be for all communities, take it basically out of the planning board and just say that it's just municipal officers? In this case, it would be like LD 1257.
1257. So these are the summaries that are on the bills themselves. I happen to see them in the legislative update we got.
Okay.
I don't know if all of you got that or not last
I
week,
saw
but
that.
they're back in
Okay.
session. So MMA will send us, and if you don't get it, Dan, we just need to get you added to
Okay.
it. But there's an option to get them electronically. And so when they're in session, we get weekly updates from MMA
Okay.
on where things stand. So all I had done was I saw it and I was like, oh, that might be worth just noting.
Well,
I don't know much
it
about
could be a
it.
big deal.
Yes,
It could be a big deal.
both of
And-
them.
And,
Yeah.
and the other one could be a big deal too.
Yeah.
Because the other one I was trying to think is that where every single community would have an affordable housing committee basically that would take the place of the planning board?
I didn't see it that way. I saw that the state would be creating.
So there'd be one
a committee.
Committee at
state
the state level.
And
that
when
would-
projects regarding affordable housing triggering one of these, they would review it. And I think the question is, how would that, so it talks about, in MMA's words, that it effectively circumventing the local process. And so I think there's a lot of questions about
Yeah.
what that all means.
And
And so now is an
it was just enough
opportunity.
to pique my interest
Yeah.
in terms of
So keep an
Yeah,
eye on
what that might mean.
So,
So,
Yeah.
One of them's represented, sponsored by one of our local reps.
yeah, I'll reach
Uh,
out to her on that one part.
And the other one is sponsored by a rep out of Kennebunkport. So now, I mean, bring it to our attention in, I don't know, our history and kind of actively engaging in these processes in the public process, but now is the time to ask the questions if they haven't already had the session on it. And then potentially speak in favor of or against, should we feel strongly one way or the other.
Why do we have local zoning and ordinances and everything else if
They can override it.
If
So
they're
they
gonna
can override it.
override it, I don't, yeah, that's very scary.
it doesn't make much sense to me, so.
No.
It'd be just good to know more in terms of what it is. So,
And Michael, you are here. I don't know if you have anything more that you've heard about it, not suggesting you should, but just saw it myself. Yeah. So on our radar,
Smart man, like, no.
One's still coming up. It's still like in the legislature.
yes,
Both are.
those both are.
Well, LD 1672 is still in there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
1257 is what.
Yeah.
Seven. Okay.
Yep.
Miles Street?
Miles Street. I have a prompt there. Thank you. Phase
Yeah.
two still kind of, so we're still waiting to close out the phase one, more on this, like the total final cost of phase
Right,
one.
yeah.
I mean, the construction's done, but
Structure's done,
Um,
punch list done. Yep, we just,
we're just trying to
Cost
get to that
stuff, but-
final cost of phase one to know exactly what we have left in funding. We have some preliminary ideas of what phase two would be costing because we asked for that back in I think,
Right.
February last year and the potential to add on to that project then. So using that as a benchmark, plus or minus, a few percent because it's now another year. But do we want to start that process of putting that out to bid? I feel relatively good if those numbers are close, that I think we could proceed. There'd be some bond money we could potentially utilize. There's reserve funding in the sidewalk reserve. There's still some private donations that were funneled, to the hospital.
and the hospital and the sanitary district, they're,
I can check, I'll have to check with sanitary
Just make
district,
sure,
but I haven't
yeah.
put a lot of energy into phase two yet, just not knowing the closeout. But if we wanted to try and get it into next, into 2024 construction season, we might want to think about starting those conversations sooner rather than later.
yeah.
Oh, Andrew's all done with the design anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's the, we are, unless we're changing the,
Merging everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah. Roll. Yeah.
Just stick them together.
yeah.
It would be a shame to lose momentum, we could have come this far and,
Yeah,
I
it
think
really
we see
needs to
what
be
the
finished.
closeout cost is and we get that.
yeah, I can see
finalized.
that, but.
Yeah.
Well, we should have an idea of that fairly soon, I hope.
I'm hoping.
Boy, hey,
Another
Is there a
update.
consensus that he should?
well, it's just it's something we've got to move on to it, but it's fine, you didn't know the financials too, but.
Yes,
um,
it's actually the sanitary district. I mean, other than being on site and providing guidance, I mean, it's really between us and the hospital and,
Yeah.
they're generally once in a while just checking in on the status. I know other folks that live in the area down there are definitely checking in from time to time because they'd love to see that sidewalk connected.
Absolutely.
So I just.
Well,
let
the
them know that
donation
It's on our
there,
radar.
but
We
the
just haven't.
funding's there, which needs to
Yep.
get utilized for
Right.
that. So, yeah. So we can, keep it rolling along and,
I'm pretty sure the hospital was secured the funding in that, what's now their current fiscal year.
right, yeah.
Through their capital program, based on the numbers we had last year.
So they
Um,
can finish their water line out and that, yeah.
I think for me, getting done with Hodgson Streets, I believe a portion of that obviously was grant funded through CDBG, but the remainder of those funds, I'm certain were supposed to come from our reserves. And so once that closes out entirely and we know how the dust settles on Miles Street, that's where I figured we'd have a better sense of
Yeah.
the road reserve and what we can go forward with.
Sounds good. Any other high points in there?
I think that's it.
Thing? That was all I had. Anybody?
Just maybe flag the January 20th perhaps comp plan
Yeah,
workshop?
actually, I was
We had a
gonna
meeting
wait
last
till
night.
later, but you're actually missing a meeting as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
There's the January 16th,
Mhm.
2024, and that meeting's here at
This
6
comp
o'clock.
plan.
This is for the
Land
land use
This, it's
workshop,
Future land use.
future land use
Future
workshop.
land use, right.
So,
being repeated.
yeah, so there's
Nothing-
two meetings, one on Tuesday, and then there's one on that Saturday at 10:30. So hopefully, if you can't make the Tuesday night meeting, you can make the Saturday meeting. And in terms of comprehensive plan, it feels like the rubber's starting to meet the road a little bit in terms of what we're doing, and this future land use workshop it feels like a big deal in terms of where you think development should happen in town, if development should happen, where it should happen, designating growth areas, figuring out what a rural area. See, I paid attention the other day, and
You did.
and so this is a big deal, and I guess I just encourage everyone, if you can, to attend one of those.
17th and
No, there's the
16th,
16th and the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah, the 16th is at 6 o'clock here,
Sick
And-
at the town office.
and the one on Saturday is at 10:30.
And that's the 20th. That's the
That's the
10:30.
20th.
That's the
Yeah,
Saturday at 10
yeah,
office.
Yeah, so hopefully one of those dates would work for folks.
It's nice they're able to throw a Saturday in for those that are, you know, midweek workers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes with these ones, so, okay, great. All right, we good? Yeah, move along. All right, let's move into official action items. So we do have, like, so we've added a tax lien, we'll go over that, but we can, well, what page am I on here? We have a request from the Pedestrian Safety and Accessibility Collaborative. Where did I
That
lose
one's
it?
on page 7. That got ahead of my report.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
I knew it was in there somewhere, so everybody get a chance to, Anton Lanston sent us, there's a request here.
It's a small amount.
Small
I'm
amount, yep.
bringing it. I mean, some of that just goes back to the board's history with PSAC as a collaborative and kind of, well, you know, the kind of resolution or, you know, effort to work with them. I mean, it's an amount I feel like I probably just could have done, but I think it's important to bring to you as part of that measured mile. They want to get that brochure reprinted.
Sure, yeah.
That I know was in collaboration. So just kind of highlighting that for you to, you know, just see where they are in that.
That was,
So
that
it's
was
a
well
$400
received. They
request.
came out with that in 21, so they're just doing an update. And the update's cheaper than the first time we did it. I like that, so.
I had made a suggestion for them just to think about, because they're reprinting it now. We have a lot of other projects that are on the horizon with the multi-use bi-lane between the school and Hannaford being planned, Church Street being planned, the Land Trust, Coastal Rivers trying to make the connection between the two, what I call the two farms, Belvedere
Mhm.
Road Farm and the old Round Top Farm. And so if they wanted to think about maybe adding some, I mean, those are already, we're working on making those happen. And so
Yeah,
just to get people, it's something a little bit different in the new version and maybe the next time it gets printed, some of those might be done.
Okay.
So they're going to think about that, but if that's okay, I can just have it come out of,
so
either your second, like board contingency or, admin printing.
Engineering costs.
engineering costs. Slide it out of Andrew's. budget,
Andrew's
yeah,
budget.
yeah. I think for as many folks that are interested in the walking and stuff in town, we probably get run out on the rail if we didn't give them $400
Yeah.
to put a map together,
All
so.
the legwork they do. and
Yeah,
everything they
yeah.
do,
Is that a
so-
motion?
Yeah, I don't know if we need a motion on that, but I'll make a motion to provide $400. What do you want to bring it out of? What contingent?
Your
The
contingency
flat-
probably, yeah.
The
Town
town
man-
manager's
town manager can-
contingency?
I don't have,
No, we had a contingency fund. What?
you have one.
We have,
We have a contingency fund.
Yep,
I think
yep.
we used it all.
I think, well, if it's there, I'll make a motion to provide $400 out of the select board contingency
I'll
fund
second
for
that.
mapping, yeah, if we get all that. All right, you seconded it?
Yeah.
All right, Josh seconded it. Any discussion? Those in favor? All right, good enough. Move that along. All right, so the addition, we have a memorandum here that got added in late. It's pretty straightforward. This is for a foreclosed property.
Yeah, the foreclosure happened at the end of December. The property owners already come in and since this has been written yesterday, I didn't include it because I didn't have all the information Saturday when I sent the packets out. So they are willing and interested to make a commitment to pay by a certain time frame. Which when we wrote this yesterday, it was by they were gonna come in tomorrow.
Hmm.
As of today, the full payment's been made already. So it's pending the board's approval to issue the quitclaim
Yeah.
deed, sell it back to the original owners. This will also be clearing up over 10 years worth of personal property on the account there, going back to 2010. And so that's good news to clear that up entirely, and they were able to make that happen. So
Yeah.
the board's put a proposed motion there if that's.
I don't
approved
see
or
why we
helpful.
wouldn't be happy with that. We get it figured out and.
You want me to read it?
If you, yeah, Dan, if
Sure.
you want to take the motion, you go right ahead.
Yeah, to sell, I'll move to sell the tax acquired property RE number 63 back to the previous owners of record, Tammy N. and David M. Lehman, for the balance of all taxes owed, and to issue a quitclaim deed upon receipt of payment contingent upon the full payment being received by January.
Already received.
It's been received, but I mean, it's
Third.
gotta clear, the check has to clear. So, I mean, to say this 31st.
January 31st.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That gives-
2024.
Something goes
Okay.
awry, there's some
All
time
right.
there, but.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, so carries. That was a easy one. Good enough. Glad that got resolved and move on with that. So, all right, let's move into some discussion items. So we've got a little bit of a few things on the list here. We have a draft of the Community Resilience Partnership Resolution.
Get a couple of folks that you've seen before, Laura and Ashley.
I was gonna say, we've got some
Um,
folks here. I
We were here
recognize.
previously talking about and so with them and Michael, there've been a couple community workshops on the climate resiliency efforts. And so this was with the state. And so one of the next steps after those now is to consider and resolve our commitment to this process. And so I'm just giving it right now in draft form, just so you have it. If you have questions or if there's things you'd like to add for the board to be thinking about before the next meeting. The idea would be if you're comfortable committing to this, we could approve it at the next meeting. That would still give us time to submit the application in time for some potential grant funding in March.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You guys can come right up if you don't mind. So we got the mic there. We'll put you on the hot seat real quick. Oh. So, yeah, I said we only left one seat up there, just so we can get you on the mic and whatnot. Thank you. So, and just, yeah.
And for
We
the-
brought a little pressure if you would like, just the community resilience partnership as a whole. Yeah, so. Like Andy was saying, at the end of March.
Thank you.
The action grant is due. So for the purpose of signing the municipal resolution, that's the last step in the enrollment process. Yeah, so once the municipal resolution is signed, Damariscotta will officially be enrolled once Ashley and I put together the enrollment materials, which includes all the information from the community workshop and self-assessment that we've been working on with Michael and the guidance.
I did provide the presentation you gave at the community meeting, as well as some of the similar documents that you just gave
Yep.
too. So just, I think you've all seen them, but just to give a little more.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so, one new thing that has come out of the community resilience partnership since we last met, last summer, talking about the community action grants. The state now is including some different funding sources for enrolled communities in the community resilience partnership. One of those being the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, which is a grant program through DOT, which is now, the current grant round that they have this year is for towns that are enrolled. So that grant deadline is mid-February. So that's just something to keep on your radar, that if we're able to get the enrollment materials in, and if there are projects that align with that, I think is something that, could be a potential for Damariscotta.
What are, sorry, Dan, you probably asked the same question. What are some of the, what are examples of some projects that are eligible for?
For the infrastructure adaptation,
Yeah.
it's kind of just projects that are improving any like roadways, culverts, kind of similar to some of the things that are in line with the community action area.
Yeah.
So-
And you're writing that down?
So,
Yep,
because
all right.
the resiliency partnership program, the grants are limited to like 50,000 per grant
Yeah.
application. Now, this DOT one sounds potentially like the dollars are much larger.
Yeah, so I don't have everything entirely memorized, but from my remembering, it's, I think, 125,000 for implementation and then 50,000 for planning or any engineering. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
some potential money there.
But it's also new that you have to be enrolled in the CRP to be eligible for DOT funds, so it makes sense to the process, I guess. Yeah.
Is there any reason why we can't?
Well, I might have a question here that might throw everybody for a loop.
Shoot, Josh. Yeah.
So as we're getting all this language in here and the town of Damariscotta has fleet vehicles. In here it has transitioning municipal fleet vehicles to electric vehicles lowers fuel and maintenance costs and reduces the uncertainty of variable fuel prices on municipal budgets. So we have 3 police department vehicles. We have 1 town truck. We have what, 5 fire trucks? Whatever. We're right around there.
Yeah.
So as we're transitioning into electric vehicles, has there been any thought into how these towns are gonna be able to afford these vehicles? Because maybe one of our next vehicles at the fire department could be a ladder truck, and they're already 1.6 million at this point. So, and then the infrastructure that takes to run these vehicles at 3 different municipal locations. So, are there any forethoughts on that coming through? Because every municipality is gonna have to think about that if they're going to transition to electric vehicles.
Yeah, so I know that like some of the funding from the CRP is towards the electric vehicle purchases. They also have to be any projects that are for the electrical vehicle purchases have to be used coincided with any rebates from efficiency main that they have available. So there are incentives from the state, but you know, nothing to the extent of the actual cost.
I mean, we're looking at 3
Yeah.
police vehicles at what? $50,000 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get into the EVs, we're up higher. We get a F-550 electric truck, I'm sure we're up there, and all our fire department trucks are going to be doubled.
Is there any
Time frame.
forethought on the planning as to when those transitions have to happen? Over what period of time?
Luckily, this is not a requirement of the municipal resolution. That's just one of the many possible languages you could include if that was a value of the town. So if that doesn't seem feasible for Damariscotta, we could certainly omit it from the municipal resolution. And then maybe table that for when EVs become cheaper or more feasible, or there's more rebates and grants.
There we go.
Well, I'm just looking at the reality
Yeah.
statewide, you know,
Good.
it's.
As long as it's not a requirement, you
It's
know.
not a
you can't-
requirement, but I also want
Yep.
to know that, hey, you know, if we're gonna agree to this and everybody's saying, well, it's great to apply for grants, you know, some of this money is not gonna cover what we need to do for just the infrastructure itself at our physical plants. So.
Yeah, so I think, I believe in the beginning of the municipal resolution, it's just the first 3 preambles that are required from the state. A majority of the latter ones are just optional. So anything that is later in that municipal resolution that you feel might not align with the town's perspectives or future doesn't have to be included. But
It's not required in the language. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know.
And there are towns that only include the required language as well. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I just put when I was putting that draft resolution together, I figured there's some stuff in there that I went ahead and I took out, and then I said, no, please give this to the board and you all make those decisions, obviously. So some of that may not be, you know, may not want in there, but I figured you could take it out, just.
So could you think of it as aspirational?
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think it's,
Because there's probably not going to be electric ladder trucks for a while, would be my guess.
you know, I don't know, I.
Oh, there's electric fire trucks, but they're very costly.
Are there?
Well, now they are, but
They were.
eventually the cost will
Yeah.
come down.
Yeah, right, and a lot of this, I mean. The initial grant opportunity is for $50,000, so there's a long list of things on that resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Much longer list of things on that, that actions gave you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're just pick, choose and prioritize.
Right.
Right.
You know, it's not we do all of this stuff $50,000.
To get it done, yeah, you have to hit all
I
the
just wanted to
marks.
mention that because I just kind of threw them at.
That's
I'm
fine.
going to leave that.
Yeah, throw them under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it?
Just wanted to get our attention.
I asked, everybody come up and you hid in the back. I see how that worked. Thank you for that clarification. So, no, thanks.
necessarily commit us to any specific project, but
Mhm.
more sets up the sort of commitment in the town of Damariscotta to aspire to and take steps towards climate resilience projects. And also makes us eligible for grants once we're enrolled, which will be very helpful for some of these infrastructure problems you would bring up as well. Yeah.
Right.
I think we are planning to come back on the 17th to hopefully pass the final version. So if there are edits to the municipal resolution or further information that's needed before, either of us.
Should we go? Yeah, we can go through Andy. Yeah. Yeah. So going forward, yeah, we can communicate with Andy if there's
Yeah.
anything we want to
Yep.
run past him.
Send
So, okay.
comments to Andy.
Yep. Well, thank you. Yeah. All right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for coming in.
The Harbor Committee has some draft ordinance revisions for consideration. Mike Hers is the chair of the group of the committee, and he happens to be here, but also had provided kind of a quick overview of the committee's efforts to revise this ordinance, which started back in
It's in a
2019.
Separate.
Mhm.
paper here. Yeah, thank
So
you for
it's
that.
been a long process for the committee and a tireless one. For various reasons, it was just pushed and kind of pushed aside, but
Sure.
they kept working. And so it's finally available for draft review. Newcastle's attorney had gone through and reviewed it back in the spring last year, I believe, late spring, early summer last year. And so this is a result of that review and the committee having gone back through those comments they made. And so I reached out to Kevin Sutherland, the manager of Newcastle, and proposed that maybe both boards wanted to get together again just to host a public hearing or just a workshop perhaps on, what's presented here in an effort to
Yeah.
continue to work together. I mean, this is a longer standing
It's a
interlocal kind of
shared ordinance.
agreement.
Yeah.
And maybe, instead of doing it separately, we just kind of come together and review it. Provide that public comment opportunity. And maybe potentially, depending on how you want to have it approved or considered to be approved, have a joint town meeting even.
Okay.
When that time comes. But starting with the draft that's been proposed, just giving that to you now to consider. Mike, I don't know if you have anything you want.
I was just going to ask Mike, do you want to come up and I forgot everybody introduce themselves. Yeah, sorry. If you don't mind putting your name in there, Mike, we know you, but the folks at home may not.
I'm Mike Hers. I've been chair of the joint Damariscotta Newcastle Harbor Committee for a number of years. We are a committee that was brought into being at the time this initial ordinance that we're looking to revise came into effect, which was in March of 2015. It established a harbor committee, which has 3 citizens from each of the 2 towns. And we meet periodically to talk about the operation of the harbor. The harbor master is not a member of the committee, but advises us, and we and the towns he reports to us and the towns. He was hired by, well, let me back up. This ordinance establishes the harbor as being a joint harbor, and the way in which the 2 towns have agreed to operate things having to do with the wet side of the 2 towns is we've allocated the clam flat harvesting and permits for that to Newcastle, to Damariscotta to oversee and collect and manage the fee money that comes in each year. And Newcastle gets the operation of the harbor. We're a small harbor. At this point, there are less than 50 moorings generate, a few $1,000 a year. That money is, I don't think it even has a separate line in the budget. It's part of the operational budget of the town. Expenses like speed control buoys, like dock maintenance, come out of that. Interesting thing about the revision that you're looking at, vision of the ordinance, doesn't have any very earth-shaking changes in it. Although one of the most important one is the original did not indicate that the Harbor Committee and could figure out structures of what amount of money would be charged, what cost would be charged.
Fees, yeah.
And now that's been added. I think that it'd be great to have everybody look at it and approve it. There are one of my committee members, I sent it out yet again, and he had some very constructive comments, and there will probably always be ways to keep it improving in ordinance. So if we don't get it in this version, it can go in the next version. But as Andy pointed out to me, what you approve can make changes from this version, but it's my understanding that the town attorney of the operating town, but maybe, I don't know whether both attorneys in the past, we've not had two attorneys look at the item or look at the document. We've only had one, and that, we worked with Attorney Drum, but he is not the fastest worker because he's overworked, and much of the time that it's taken to work through this, it's taken 5 CEOs, town CEOs, and an attorney, and COVID from, I think we started this in January, 2 months before COVID restrictions came into effect, and here we are in January, 4 years later.
Picking away at it, yeah.
But I like Andy's idea of having both boards have a work session to discuss it, and happy to do that this morning.
Yeah, Mike, can you add some color to this additional agenda items recently considered by the Harbor Committee, include potential mitigation of conflicts between oyster farm lease areas and kayaks, et cetera, et cetera.
Where are you at, Tom? What are you?
Second paragraph
second
on the
paragraph.
summary page that you wrote. I think you wrote.
On the back,
Second paragraph of my memo.
Yeah. Second to last paragraph.
back page.
Basically, what I'm saying is there anticipation that you're gonna come up with something in the ordinance that would sort of regulate that, or how are you gonna attack that?
Well, we could, and I know you held this, I don't know what it was called, work session to discuss
Yeah.
the situation, and unfortunately, I was out of town when that happened, and I've read the Lincoln County News about the meeting, reporting on it, and I think some very important issues have been raised. We have already discussed with the Department of Human Resources coming up with a buoyage color system such that it would be more obvious whether the lease is a surface gear lease or a bottom lease, which makes a big difference to the boats that are trying to navigate through the areas that where the leases are. So, I mean, I think this is always open for discussion. I think it's throughout the state. It's being discussed very heavily because of the moratorium in Bristol and the contemplated one in
South Bristol and
Waldeboro, South Bristol.
So what I'm really saying is when this was on the agenda and it was discussed, what were the ideas or thoughts on?
Um. Well, the ideas were coming up with this voyage system. And pretty much DMR is in the driver's seat in terms of dictating what can and can't take place. They have said that it makes sense to give local authority to whatever the management system is. It would be the two select boards and the harbor committee in this case. And already they're willing to undertake this review of suggestions about the color system, that you have different colors for surface and bottom leases. And that would not be necessarily expected to be replicated anyplace else in the state. That would just be in our river.
Okay.
So it's up for discussion, and it might make sense to have that be an item of discussion at the work session when we do this.
Good,
Okay.
thanks.
So
Sounds good.
the
So-
dates we're proposing for that are relatively quick turnaround. We're proposing the 11th of January or the 18th of January. That's potentially dates that the board might be interested, this board anyways, might be interested in. Newcastle meets Monday, so they'll get the same proposal.
What day do those fall on? It's the 11th.
11th is a Thursday. January
Can-
11th is a Thursday.
Thursday, okay. Thursdays.
Certainly wait as well. It just
18th
might need to be towards the
Is a Thursday.
end of February.
I just know my schedule's got ink on everything, so.
Oh, we looked at the basketball schedules and didn't see a game on either of those.
Yeah, we moved around on that one, yeah.
I could do either one.
Yeah,
Either one.
we'll pay Lily to throw the game next time. So. I didn't go, sorry, I didn't go into. Well, going out any further too, we're getting into budget in February and stuff too. So, I mean, I know there's a lot, there's no good time, everybody's busy, but I suppose, and this is, we've talked to Newcastle and these. are
Kevin's
dates
gonna
we talked to
share it with
Kevin.
them on Monday, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so.
so they'll choose one of those.
So right now, as for our board, is either one, 11th or 18th, stick out as any
No,
pluses or minuses for anybody?
Make either work.
Oh, okay,
Either
all
one.
right.
Can I make it?
Well, yeah, I know, it's not, yeah, it is what it is, just trying to, yeah, so just,
Okay.
if they have any preference, we can work around that, so.
We'd thrown out the idea of maybe trying to do it in front of the week on the 17th, and I said it might be a longer conversation than the board may want to
Yeah,
be here for following another meeting, so
okay,
Oh, right.
found other dates. But, all right, I'll
No
let them
problem.
know, we'll both are
All right.
open on both dates.
And
But-
let me know so I can let the committee
Yep.
know, so they'll probably have to attend.
oh, yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. very much.
Thank you, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, we have one,
Yeah, the last thing on there, just for discussion that I had noted again, so something we brought up previously about personal property. So we went back through our database and we had Kate go through the select board minutes from a while back. There was a thought that it had come up in about 2019 or 20, but didn't find anything in the select board minutes about any kind of large write-offs, if you will, of past due balances. So the Trio database has us going back to 2010 with
Yeah.
personal property being still on the books and due to us. So I'd just put it in a spreadsheet there and showed the non-interest due, as it calls it, and then the balance due would include the interest, from those years. So you see the principal amount in 2010 is just over $5,000 with interest from that long ago. It's just over $11,000 that would be owed. But when I look at the uncollected percentage, I was just using that over the original commitment in the non-interest amount. So you understand and can see that it's not large numbers. It's anywhere from, other than the current year, because the second payment's not due yet, but anywhere from less than 1%. The highest year, I think, is that 2010 year at 3.2%. But for the last 4 years, it's been less than 1% that's uncollected. So the majority of it is getting paid, but there are these lingering accounts that some of them are repeat ones. A lot of them, and the older ones, aren't even in business, haven't been for a long time. So Just throwing it out there just for you to see what the balance is. I put
Okay,
some
thank
information
you.
in there again about our options to proceed. I mean, really, you're talking about the older years, just writing it off or going to a small claims for those that might still be in business potentially, and just taking a whole lump there. And if you want to take that avenue, there's just a couple steps you need to take because these are committed by the tax collector and they're personally responsible to collect. We've gone through a few tax collectors since 2010. And so there is, if you want to do the small claims process, the board would just need to make a motion to kind of do that on their behalf and proceed down that avenue.
So the small claims,
Finance?
as I read through it, that's the only one that makes any sense at all.
I think so.
So the other churches,
Actually worth it to do some of it?
We need to do a little more legwork, I think, to just run through what the balance due on those that are still in business, probably. I mean, if they've been out of business for years, it's gonna be,
Off
you're not
anyway,
gonna do
yeah.
anything. We may seek just a better legal understanding if you've got something out there from 2010, 11, 12, and in that time frame. I mean, can, should, will, I mean, if they are still in business. So I might need to consolidate that and kind of run that list a little bit differently for you to understand how much is owed by those still in business in those given years. Make sure it's something that we feel good about going forward with that far back.
Hmm.
But just wanted to see the full amount there.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Did you want a resolution on that tonight? Okay.
Now we gotta do some more
We'd
legwork
have
for
to
you.
see the amounts and the numbers and stuff is really something we paid a lot of attention to, so. Some more information. All right. Anything else on?
I'm good. And just
We're good.
know if there's anything else the board had to.
Yeah,
Wanna
I can
discuss?
call it if anything else we can add in. We do have an executive session that we're gonna move into. Is Amanda? She's right. Oh, my God. I didn't see you hiding back there. He was in person. So, well, if there's, I mean, we can move on. There's no other discussion items. I think Amanda's here in person. Wait, I didn't even know you were back there. I'm so embarrassed. Yeah, you're hiding back there. Just to expedite things, I think we should probably move into executive session. So Michael, do you have anything left that you need to add? Okay. So we're gonna, we'll make a motion and then we've got to kick the reporter out, shut the recording off.
We didn't have a fight though. which is-
No fight. We may or may not have we may or may not have an action when we come out of executive session, so we can get that, we'll get it recorded. Andy can get it recorded and we can get it to the powers that be. So, all right. So with that, I'll make a motion to move an executive session pursuant to MRSA 4056E for consultation with legal counsel. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Josh seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? 3, 4, 5, we are good. Okay, we'll give everybody a minute to clear out.